So two things, stories like this is the reason why I don't trust nobody and the reason why I stay in the house. Seriously, this video is the 10 real scary mysteries with CCTV footage. Let's check it out.
CCTV and surveillance cameras have become a crucial tool for police investigating missing person cases. It helps narrow down search locations and gives an accurate description of what the missing person was wearing before they vanished. Unfortunately, having this camera footage doesn't always lead to the missing person being swiftly found. Number 10. Shortly before his 23rd birthday, Jack O'Sullivan vanished while on a night out in Bristol, England. More than 2 months after he was last seen, his family are still searching for answers as to what happened to him. Jack was described as a smart and determined individual. He'd graduated from university with a law degree. According to his parents, he already had placements lined up for the summer. He was very focused on his future and had applied for dozens of positions to make sure he got something. He also enjoyed spending time with his friends and would typically go out with them on a Friday night. The night when Jack went missing started like any other. At 8:20 p.m. on March 1st, 2024, Jack left the house where he lived with his parents to travel to Bristol. He met up with friends at a Wetherspoons pub where they stayed for a few hours. By 10:45 p.m., the group had moved from the pub to a house party where a birthday was being celebrated. Jack sent a text message to his parents to let them know where he was and to assure them that he was safe. Another message was sent at 1:52 a.m., again telling his mother that he was okay. About an hour later, Jack left the party alone. There doesn't seem to have been any reason for this, or if there was, it hasn't been made public. For the next 40 minutes or so, Jack wandered around the area. The party had taken place in Hotwells area in West Bristol. It was only a 5-minute walk to Cumberland Basin and the River Avon. 2 bridges crossed from the neighborhood where the party took place to Spike Island, and both formed part of the route Jack took as he wandered around. Jack was caught on CCTV multiple times during his journey. There didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary about him in these images. He was alone and didn't seem to be in any trouble. The footage showed Jack heading south over Junction Spring Bridge onto Spike Island. He walked along Brunel Lock Road and up to Brunel Way, a flyover that ran back across the river. One piece of CCTV footage that's believed to feature Jack showed him walking across this bridge at 3:25 a.m. Even though it was
Now you at a party, house party, after being at a pub. So you walking around randomly at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. To me, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody did something. Normally, I've heard of stories where people are walking around and I'm assuming possibly that he might have been really drunk. So you could walk around drunk 2, 3 in the morning and fall off a bridge, fall into a river, something like that. So I'm not necessarily thinking foul play right now, but based off what I'm hearing, I'm thinking, walking around drunk, something could have happened to you, stumbling or falling into something or falling off of something into something.
It was the early hours of the morning, it still would have been relatively busy. The police estimated that around 410 cars would have passed under the flyover at around the time when Jack was seen in the area. At the same time, when Jack was walking across this flyover, he tried to call a friend that was still at the party. She didn't answer, but 10 minutes later, called him back. Jack picked up the phone and said hello, only for the call to disconnect. The last piece of CCTV footage, believed to have been Jack, showed a figure walking along a road called Bennett Way. What happened after that is a mystery. He may have crossed back over the basin or walked along a footbridge into more residential areas on his way back to the house party. Jack's friend tried to contact him multiple times after the call disconnected. She'd sent text messages asking him to let her know where he was and if he was okay, but Jack never responded. However, it was later discovered that his Find My Friends app was still running up until around 6 a.m., so the phone was still on. It hasn't been revealed if it moved at all between when Jack last used it and when it disconnected from the app. Jack's parents knew there was something wrong when they woke up at 5 a.m. and Jack wasn't home. In his last message, he told them that he was getting a taxi home, but he hadn't arrived or informed them about a change of plans. This was very out of character for him, and the search for Jack began. Police trawled through hundreds of hours of CCTV footage, enabling them to piece together information about Jack's final walk until he vanished into thin air. The last confirmed sighting of Jack was at 3:13 a.m., with the final 2 CCTV clips showing a figure that's only believed to be him.
See, I hate that. I hate hearing that he vanished into thin air. What do you mean? Like, we need to put up some more cameras. More cameras need to go up. There should be no blind spots. I hate when I hear that in the story. He's walking, we got him on footage until he goes to a point where there's no footage at. And see, that makes me think of foul play, because people will scout and see where the cameras are and where there's a blind spot where they can do something or harm to somebody. They know this type of information. So we need to put up more cameras.
It's possible this could be someone else who was also walking in the area when Jack went missing. But the police believe this is unlikely. Jack's parents have walked along the route where he was last seen, discovering that it was well lit even at 3 a.m. That doesn't mean that Jack didn't stumble or get lost, and the mystery of what happened to him remains. Neither Jack nor any of his belongings have been uncovered. Jack is described as being 5 foot 10 inches tall, of a slim build with short brown hair. He was last seen wearing a green-brown barber jacket, navy pants, and brown leather shoes. He also had with him his car keys, driver's license, his phone, and house key. Anyone with information should call 101 with the reference number 522-405-5172. Number 9. On August 20th, 2023, John Keaveney walked out of a hospital in Cork, Ireland. He just discharged himself after 2 epileptic episodes, but was still wearing a hospital wristband when he was last seen before vanishing. John was 43 years old at the time he went missing, and a father of 3 young children. He lived in Dublin and would often make trips to Cork for work or to see concerts. On this occasion, he was taking a family trip to East Cork, enjoying the warm weather. But on August 19th, John suffered an epilepsy episode. He'd first been diagnosed with epilepsy 10 years earlier, and he would get episodes from time to time. He was taken to Cork University Hospital, where he was given medicine and stayed overnight. This was a typical response to episodes for John. Normally, he would be ready to head home the following day and continue his life as normal. But this time would be different. While he was at the hospital, John suffered from a second episode. It's believed he became disoriented after this and may have forgotten where he was or why he was there. John was still allowed to discharge himself from the hospital and left sometime in the afternoon. It's difficult to know what kind of mental state John was in when he left the hospital. He may have been confused about why he was in Cork, but he seemingly recognized the location and knew who he was. At one point, he called family members. The details of those conversations haven't been revealed, but before they could figure out where he was, his phone ran out of battery. At 9:30 p.m. that evening, John was reported missing. A few people would report sightings of John. One person saw him walking along McCurtain Street, the same street he was on when he talked to family members on the phone. The witness described John as looking disoriented and wearing a hospital wristband. Unfortunately, they didn't stop to check on him. Between 1:25 and 1:40 a.m., John was caught on CCTV around a stadium in an area known as the Marina. He was also spotted at a Circle K gas station about 20 minutes from the stadium. There, he tried to use the pumps to charge his phone before wandering off again. John's family described the CCTV footage as hard to watch, as he clearly wasn't very well. He was also unsteady on his feet. This was the last confirmed sighting of John. It's possible that John was spotted near Cork Airport at around 4 a.m. on August 21st. It would have taken at least 2 hours to walk between the 2 locations and along roads not suitable for pedestrians. John may have hitchhiked, but nobody has come forward to reveal they picked him up. John's disappearance was completely out of character for him and left his family confused about what might have happened. Many searches have taken place in the months after John vanished, including using radar to search waterways. The discovery of a body in another missing person case made search teams realize they needed to search further along the shoreline than they previously had. Searches went all the way to Cove, but no sign of John or his belongings has been found. It's possible that someone took John in, not realizing that he was being looked for. Alternatively, he may have sought shelter in a disused shed or outbuilding and hasn't been discovered yet. John is described as being 5 foot 9 inches tall and bald. He was last seen wearing navy pants, a gray hoodie with the Irish soccer logo, and white shoes. Anyone with information can contact the phone line dedicated to the search at 083-462-2598 or any Cork Garda station. Number 8. It's been over 5 years since Cynthia Perisian was caught on CCTV outside a Winnipeg Home Depot. What happened after she left the view of the camera has remained a mystery. There was a lot going on in Cynthia's life at the time of her disappearance. A recent house fire had left her without a home, but a network of friends and family had helped her find a place to stay and supported her through other problems she was dealing with. She was struggling to make ends meet though, and had pawned electronics, including her phone, shortly before she vanished without a trace. But there were a lot of good things in Cynthia's life that she was looking forward to. She was the mother of 11 children and was expecting a grandchild. Cynthia was very excited about being a grandmother. She was also looking forward to one of her children graduating. These were both milestones that she would miss. On February 17, 2019, Cynthia visited a Home Depot on Layla Avenue in Winnipeg. She was wrapped up against the cold weather with a dark-colored coat and a bright pink hat and was carrying a pink backpack. Cynthia only spent a couple of minutes in the store, and it's not clear if she actually bought anything or not. CCTV captured Cynthia leaving the store, carrying her bag in her hand. She went to a payphone located near the door of the store and then went across the parking lot. While Cynthia had been inside, a dark-colored truck had been circling the store. CCTV footage from the outside showed the vehicle pulling up to a stop as Cynthia crossed the parking lot. She approached the truck, and the police believe it's likely that she got inside. Unfortunately, the camera footage from outside the store was particularly grainy, and the vehicle didn't stop close to the camera. It was impossible to tell for certain whether Cynthia was in the vehicle when it pulled away, or if she'd simply passed behind it. Since then, there's been no word from Cynthia. She hasn't contacted any of her family or friends. This was very out of character for her, especially considering the events that recently happened in her life. The police appealed for information and later released the CCTV footage from both inside and out of the store. They asked the driver of the truck to get in touch with them, but there's been no update in the case since this point. Cynthia's sister, mother, and stepfather also made appeals for information, and her sister made a post dedicated to the search, but there was nothing new to report. Cynthia is described as being 5 foot 3 inches tall with a heavy build, brown hair, and brown eyes. Anyone with information in this case should contact the Missing Persons Unit at 2.
Now, if I'm replaying and looking back in my mind at that picture, right, when she walked in that store, I know it wasn't live footage, it was just a still shot, but she was kind of leaning a little bit when she was walking in there, which kind of determines, like, you know how when you walk through a door, if you're walking through with purpose, you kind of lean a little bit because you headed somewhere and it's like you cutting around that door and you focus. You making a beeline to wherever it is you're going, you know where it's at, you're going there to get it and come right out. So I was like, man. And then you think about it, if somebody has you captive, you're not going to get out of the van, go in the store, and then come back into the van, right? So she had to probably meet up with that van for the first time or see that van for the first time and got in, or they kidnapped her or something. You know, 11 kids, bro. 11 kids. And you're starting to have milestones and different things happen in your life with your kids. I find it hard to believe a mother could just abandon 11 kids. Granted, she probably stressed out, not making no money, you know? So there's always a possibility. So this would be a tough case based on just the evidence that they have. Like, this would be a tough case to solve. Maybe somebody put the video out and somebody recognizes the van and gives you a lead that way. Other than that, what do you have?
204-986-6250. or Crime Stoppers at 204-786-8477. Number 7. Missing person cases are often baffling, but that's even more the case when there seems to be no reason why the person in question was in the location where they were last seen. That's the case with the recent disappearance of Daniel Mitzy, who vanished without a trace from St. Ives in Cornwall in December of 2023. Daniel came from a close-knit family and lived with his older brother Jake and their pets in Plymouth, England. According to Jake, he was a homebody and didn't travel very often. He would go out for a walk around the local area once a day, but the only time he went any further than that was to go to the store. Daniel worked as a freelance writer, writing about gaming news and posts for other people's blogs. Jake would later discover Daniel had some debts, but it was nothing too serious. In the days and weeks leading up to Daniel's disappearance, there was nothing out of the ordinary that any of his family members noticed. He wasn't working on any special projects, and there was no reason to believe he would disappear from their lives in a short amount of time. On the morning of December 8th, Daniel bought a return ticket to St. Earth Station in Cornwall and started to walk towards St. Ives. CCTV cameras caught him at the train station and in St. Ives. At 1:28 p.m., he was spotted at the Porthmeor Beach. The last confirmed sighting of Daniel saw him walking towards the coastal path at 1:38 p.m. Daniel didn't return home that evening. It was incredibly unusual for Daniel to stay out overnight, especially without telling anybody, so his brother was immediately concerned. It wasn't long before Daniel was reported missing, and the police were able to trace him to St. Ives. According to his family members, Daniel had no known connections to the seaside town. It was possible that he was simply on a day out to enjoy himself, but it would have been very out of character for him. Jake described Daniel as risk-averse. It would be unlikely that he would go off to a town he was unfamiliar with to meet a stranger. It was also strange that he would walk along the coastal path in the first place. At that time of year, the path could become treacherous due to muddy conditions, and Jake believes Daniel wouldn't have thought it safe considering the outfit he was wearing. Daniel was also afraid of water, even though he could swim, so it seems unlikely he intentionally entered the water. As well as his phone, Daniel took a charger and some shower gel with him, but it's not known if he intended to stay overnight. He had a small bag with him, and it's possible he'd taken a change of clothes. Daniel's phone last pinged from a phone mast in Camborne at 6:40 p.m. Camborne is a town roughly a 20-minute drive from St. Ives, with a bus connecting the two towns. But Daniel's family believed he was still in St. Ives at the time, and the mast location was simply because there were fewer phone masts in the area. The police contacted people who were spotted walking past Daniel in CCTV footage, but nobody has been able to track him down. There are a number of possibilities for what happened to him, including an accidental fall. The police believe that it's unlikely that Daniel intentionally fell from the cliff tops. Daniel was 35 at the time of his disappearance, around 5'6" tall, with short curly brown hair. He was last seen wearing a dark jacket, jeans, and brown shoes. Anyone with information in this case should contact the local police with reference 502-303-21378. Number 6. For many people, welcoming a child into their lives can be one of the most wonderful experiences. Unfortunately, sometimes changes to a person's body during and after pregnancy can have unintended and potentially scary consequences. In the case of Zoe Penrod, postpartum psychosis led to her sudden disappearance on New Year's Eve 2023, and she's still not been found. Zoe lived with her fiancé, David Boyette, in Myers Flat, California. In 2023, Zoe gave birth to their son. It seemed like a happy event for both new parents, but in December, things started to change. Zoe switched to formula milk for the baby. According to David, it was around this time that she began acting differently. He said she wasn't acting like herself and spontaneously decided to go visit a friend without telling anyone where she was going. At first, he thought she was just sleep deprived. With the newborn baby in the house, it wouldn't be surprising if Zoe wasn't getting a full night's sleep.
That seems a bit suspicious. Come on now. Like, I'm sorry, I've been programmed. As soon as I hear like a boyfriend or a spouse, I automatically start off thinking about them. or accusing them, right? Anybody else? Blame it on these movies that come on TV all the time, man. They make it like they make you look directly at the boyfriend or spouse first, right? And then the fact that he said she just all of a sudden changed and then she just up and started going to visit her friend or wherever she was going by herself. That makes me think, okay, you're thinking she's going to see another male. You're thinking she's cheating. You start getting jealous and suspicious. See how the narrative is painting? At least for me, I'm so suspected of him, suspicious of him.
With the newborn baby in the house, it wouldn't be surprising if Zoe wasn't getting a full night's sleep. David hoped that staying with her friend would help Zoe recover. It seemed to have the opposite effect, though, and Zoe's behavior became even stranger. By Christmas, she returned home to David and their son. She said she was hearing voices and that they could mimic her own voice and the voices of her friends. They all encouraged her to go outside. Zoe also believed that her food was being poisoned and stopped eating and sleeping. David eventually contacted law enforcement, who helped Zoe to get medical treatment. She was held at a facility for a few days and seemed to have recovered somewhat. But when she...
Okay, I apologize, boyfriend. I apologize. It's all for you now. Now the attention's on her, you know?
returned home, things took a turn for the worse again. On the evening of December 31st, just 3 weeks after the psychosis began, David found his fiancée standing outside. She was wearing his shoes and a dress that was unsuitable for the cold weather. David stayed with Zoe for a while. The baby woke inside the house, and he went to check on him. When David went back outside, Zoe was nowhere to be found. Zoe was reported missing before 9 a.m. the following day. There was no sign of her in the immediate surrounding area, and the police put out appeals for information. A few days later, a photo was published in the hopes of helping the investigation. A CCTV camera captured footage of Zoe walking along the Avenue of Giants, just a block away from her home. She was wearing a dressing gown, as well as the dress and oversized shoes. The area where Zoe was spotted was very rural. There's a lot of tree cover, and much of the highway follows the course of the South Fork Eel River. The CCTV sighting gave the police a place to start looking, and volunteer search parties began to scour the forested area in the hopes of finding clues. The police search was limited to just a mile from where Zoe was last seen, but others took the search further. Unfortunately, no clues were found. There have been a few potential sightings of women matching Zoe's description in the local homeless population. These have all turned out to be cases of mistaken identity, but there is still hope that Zoe may be alive and living rough somewhere. Zoe is described as being 5 foot 5 inches tall and weighed about 140 pounds when she vanished. She had shoulder-length auburn hair and green eyes. Anyone with information on the case should contact the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office at 707-445-7251. Number 5. When Caleb Harris vanished without a trace from Corpus Christi, Texas, his family were certain he had met with foul play. In the months since he was last seen, there have been few clues gathered about what really happened on March 4th, 2024. Caleb was a 21-year-old environmental sciences student at Texas A&M University. He was also a keen fisherman and wanted to become a game warden or environmental lawyer once he graduated. His family described him as a kind individual who would go out of his way to help others. They fear that someone might have taken advantage of that to attack him. As in many missing person cases, there were no signs that anything out of the ordinary was going to happen in Caleb's life in the days leading up to his disappearance. On March 3rd, he spoke to his father over the phone. He also made plans to go fishing the following day. The evening was spent playing video games online. Caleb lived in an off-campus apartment with 2 roommates and a dog they shared. On the night of the disappearance, a mutual friend came to visit and joined them in video games for a while. At 12:56 a.m. on March 4th, a doorbell camera captured Caleb, his roommate, and a friend in the parking lot. They were playing with the roommate's girlfriend's new puppy, and everybody seemed to be in good spirits. Not long after they went back inside, the friend left to go home. Caleb and his roommate stayed up for a while, but at about 2:20 a.m., his roommate said he was going to turn in for the night. Caleb said he was going to stay up for a while and order snacks to take for his lunch the next day. At 2:44 a.m., Caleb sent a Snapchat message to his sister. showing him walking a dog through the parking lot of his apartment complex. About 20 minutes later, he sent another photo to a friend. This one was a little more unsettling and is described as being of a small bridge over a drainage ditch near the entrance to the apartment complex. On its own, the image sounds eerie, especially considering that this was the last image anybody received from Caleb. But he could have just been using it for a background to the text he was sending his friend. If there was any text in the message, that hasn't been revealed. The last time Caleb's phone pinged a cell tower was at 3:12 a.m. 8 minutes later, an Uber Eats driver arrived at Caleb's apartment with the snacks that he had ordered. The order requested that the food be left outside, so the driver never realized that nobody came out to pick it up. At 11 a.m., one of Caleb's roommates went outside to discover that the food was still sitting there, untouched. Caleb liked routine and didn't go out much, which made his sudden disappearance all the more unusual to his friends. They searched the local area before contacting authorities to report Caleb as missing. The investigation into Caleb's disappearance was extensive. The drainage ditch became the focus of a search.
I was thinking that too. That's the only thing I could think about was that drainage ditch. What could have been in there besides maybe snakes, depending on where you are, maybe a gator or something like that, you know? You got to be careful for those type of things. So that was the only thing I could think of. That drainage ditch, they need to like focus their attention there.
The team walked hand in hand across the river, but Caleb wasn't found. The only thing missing from his apartment was Caleb's phone. His keys and ID were still inside, and the truck was parked outside. There was no sign of a struggle, but foul play couldn't be ruled out. Caleb's family believe it's possible someone lured him into their vehicle by asking for help. A reward of $50,000 was offered for Caleb's safe return. Caleb is described as being 5 foot 11 inches tall and weighing 180 pounds. He has brown hair and brown eyes. Anybody with information in this case can contact Corpus Christi Police at 361-826-2840 or Crime Stoppers at 888-8477. Caleb's family have also set up a tip line number, 361-826-2950.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking foul play with that one too. You know what I mean? He left his keys and stuff at the house, signaling to me that he was coming back. He was only stepping out for a short minute. Just need to grab my phone. We all do that. That lets me know he had planned on coming right back whenever he went out to do whatever he was doing real quick. Plus, he had the Uber Eats food or whoever delivered it, the delivery at the door. So he knew he had to come out for that. So it gotta be foul play.
Number 4. In most cases, adults have the right to disappear, but it can be difficult to know when a missing person is exercising that right, or when something strange or unusual has happened to them. This is one of the problems in the case of Paul Baker, who's been missing since the end of January 2024. The last time Paul's family saw him was on January 13th, 2024. He'd gone to visit his parents, who lived near the town of Melton in Leicestershire. It was a typical visit, and his parents didn't think anything was amiss when he told them he was going into town to have a few drinks with friends. Paul left his work car at the house. He left behind the keys with the excuse that his parents might need them if the car alarm was set off. The following day, Paul still hadn't returned home. His wife and parents couldn't get a hold of him and discovered that his work hadn't heard from him either. Paul had spent over 20 years working at a company that supplied nursery and forestry plants, a job he loved. It seemed unthinkable to his family that he would just abandon it or them. After searching around the town, the police were contacted and Paul was listed as a missing person. It wasn't long before the police were able to uncover CCTV footage to help in the investigation. Paul was seen at Sainsbury's store, taking money out of his bank account. The footage showed him wearing a large backpack which appeared to have a sleeping bag attached to the bottom. He bought a coffee from a nearby McDonald's and then disappeared into thin air. Paul's family believe he's on the move. There was a potential sighting of him in Peterborough in February, and his family have been following up other tips. Unfortunately, so far, Paul hasn't been located. After reviewing CCTV footage, the police concluded that Paul didn't seem to be in an altered mental space and was capable of looking after himself. The official investigation into his disappearance has been dropped, but his family have continued to appeal for information. If 6 months pass and Paul still hasn't been found, The missing persons charity will once again join the investigation into his disappearance. But for now, Paul's family and friends are alone in the search. Even if Paul did intentionally disappear, they find it hard to believe he wouldn't have contacted his parents, whom he was very close with. In an appeal in April, they made a statement assuring Paul that nobody was angry with him, and they simply wanted to know if he was all right. The last known sighting of Paul was the February sighting in Peterborough, and it's possible that he's run into trouble since then. Paul is described as being of a slim build and is 5 foot 6 inches tall. He has receding gray hair and stubble and was last seen wearing a dark-colored jacket, a backpack, jeans, and white shoes. Anyone with information on this case can contact Paul's family via the Paul Baker Missing Person Facebook page. Number 3. Michael Murdoch was last seen on September 25, 2020. More than 3 years later, there's been little development in his case, and he remains a missing person. Michael was 44 years old at the time of his disappearance and living in New Zealand. A problem with his knee had recently left him unemployed, but he was still doing odd jobs for his landlord to earn his keep. There are few details available surrounding what was going on in Michael's life on the day of his disappearance. His brother described him as being a family man who was really close to his father. A friend said that Michael was super faithful and super honest. The last time Michael was seen by anybody who knew him was at 2 p.m. on September 25th, when he had a conversation with someone described as an associate. Like many details in this case, what the conversation was about appears to be a mystery. After a few days without seeing or hearing from Michael, his landlord Alex Parr grew concerned. Michael was living in a house van on Alex's property, so he would have noticed Michael's absence. He contacted Michael's friends and acquaintances. When it became clear that nobody knew where he was, Michael was reported as a missing person. CCTV footage recorded the day after Michael went missing only made the case even stranger. Michael was spotted at Waitomo Will's service station, where he was a frequent customer. The station owner explained that she usually saw Michael between 2:30 and 3, but this time Michael had stopped at the station at 7:41 a.m., the day after he was last seen. The CCTV footage hasn't been released, but he was described as wearing red gumshoes, which Michael's family believes meant that he was heading for a job. The store owner checked the tapes from around the time Michael disappeared, but there were no other sightings of him. An update on Michael's disappearance came a few weeks later when the police received cell phone data. They discovered that Michael's phone had pinged from cell towers between midnight and 6 a.m. on September 28th, 2 days after he was last seen, and almost a full day after he was caught on camera. The final ping came at 6:08 a.m. in the Horoshu area. The new piece of evidence prompted the police to send a helicopter and dive squad to the area. Horoshu sits on the banks of the Waikato River, and there are a few other lakes in the area. But even if Michael was found in one of these waterways, it wouldn't explain what he was doing in the area in the first place. The searches didn't turn up any new evidence, and Michael remains missing. Michael was last seen with his car, a 2001 red Nissan Skyline with chrome wheels and the number plate FMF221. The police have appealed for anyone who's seen Michael or his vehicle to contact them at 07-828-7560 or contact Crime Stoppers at 0800-555-111. Number 2. It's been over a year since UC Santa Barbara graduate Riley Shay vanished without a trace. At the time, some CCTV evidence was recovered, but the case has since gone cold, and Riley remains missing. Riley was 24 years old and had recently graduated from university when he vanished without a trace. It was a time of a lot of changes for Riley. He had plans to attend at U.S. Riverside in the fall to study in an ethnic studies graduate program, and had visited friends in Los Angeles as he checked out the campus there. But there had been also some negative changes. A family member had recently passed away, and his sister would later say that this might have had an impact on Riley's mental state. He was also struggling with being back in his hometown of Brook Trails, where he'd moved back to after graduation. According to one of his teachers at the university, he said the town didn't feel welcoming, and Riley was looking forward to getting into a community again when he attended U.S. Riverside. Riley was last seen on March 27, 2023, when he left his home on Hawk Terrace. He was caught on the home surveillance camera, which showed him wearing a long gray robe, blue pants that may have been flannel, and carrying a light blue or green bag. Riley liked to be around nature, and there was a lot of it around brook trails. It wouldn't be unusual to find him exploring the local area, including around Lake Emily, at Willits Airport, and on the disc golf course. It was initially thought that he might have gone to one of these areas to meditate. He may have had a Buddha statue and prayer bowl with him.
Not to saying that's what happened to him, but these nature trails and different things like that, bro, they make me nervous. They scare me, fam. I stay away from them. Especially the ones that are like kind of deep in the woods where you can really get off on a nature trail. Like, people do bad things on these nature trails, man. People be squatting on you, waiting to jump out, snatch you up, take you to the woods, all kind of things, man. So I just ain't never been one for the nature walk, nature trail type thing, because my mind automatically go to just thinking of all these horrific things that could happen or take place back there in those trails.
When he didn't return home, his family became worried. It wasn't long before the alarm was raised, and the police began appealing for information on his disappearance. Multiple search teams went over the hills and forested areas surrounding brook trails, but so far nothing has been found. His family worry he might have had some kind of mental break and was now in a vulnerable position. The public was told not to approach Riley, but to contact the police if they saw him. A few sightings came in. Riley had left his home at 11:15 a.m. and was seen around noon near the airport. There was another possible sighting at 3:15 p.m., not far from Riley's home. There have been some later sightings that were called in, but so far none of these have turned out to be Riley. The police and Riley's family are still appealing for anybody who thinks they might have seen him to get in touch. An appeal for further camera footage was also sent out, but the police received no new footage of the missing person. Since the initial flurry of appeals and searches, there haven't been any updates on this case. Riley's family tries to keep the focus on his disappearance via social media, but there hasn't been anything new to add over the past few months. Riley was 5'10" and weighed 310 pounds at the time that he disappeared. He wore contact lenses, but may have been wearing glasses when he left the house. Anybody with information can contact the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office at 707-463-4095. Number 1. Since 2018, the family and friends of Jermaine Charlo have been searching for answers in her missing person case. Despite countless searches, no clues have been uncovered, and Jermaine's case remains unsolved. Jermaine was just 23 years old when she went missing. She was the mother of 2 young sons and was close to the rest of her family. According to her aunt, she had a goofy sense of humor and loved fishing and being outdoors. It was the early hours of June 16, 2018, when Jermaine was last seen. The previous year, she'd broken up with her boyfriend and the father of her children, a man named Michael DeFrance. It had been an unhappy relationship, and there were many instances where DeFrance had laid his hands on her. Jermaine had recently started dating another man, but was keeping it a secret from DeFrance, who still wanted to spend time with her. He was also out with Jermaine the night that she went missing. The two went to 3 different bars in the Missoula, Montana area. They ended the night at a bar named Badlander, where she was caught on CCTV around midnight. According to the bartender at Badlander, neither Jermaine nor DeFrance appeared to be particularly intoxicated. The CCTV footage showed Jermaine and DeFrance chatting with a group of people in an alley outside the bar. Jermaine was the most dynamic, interacting with multiple people while DeFrance didn't talk much. Shortly after midnight, the two left the bar and were seen walking down the alley before they vanished without a trace. The day after Jermaine was last seen, her family contacted the police to report her as a missing person. They hadn't been able to get in contact with her since the night she vanished, and she hadn't been posting on social media. Jermaine was a prolific social media user, so this was extremely out of the ordinary. DeFrance was contacted and informed Jermaine's family that he had dropped her off near the Orange Street Food Farm, which was just a 3-minute drive from the bar where they were last seen together. But he would later tell the police that he dropped her off in an area 8 blocks away. The search for Jermaine began in this area, but has since focused on an area known as Avaro Hill. This wooded area is covered with brush and animal bones, making it extremely difficult to search. Jermaine's phone was in the area between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. on June 16th, in an area not far from DeFrance's home. Like Jermaine herself, the phone has never been located. The police and Jermaine's family don't believe she intentionally disappeared. She wouldn't have left behind her 2 sons, and she didn't have anything she would need to survive if she wanted to vanish. The police believe there are 3 possibilities. She was kidnapped by an organized crime group, her disappearance was related to illegal substances in some way, or she was hurt by someone she knew. The police have a number of potential suspects.
Maybe somebody that told the parents they dropped her off at one place and then told the police somewhere completely different. Maybe that person, maybe. I don't know. That's why I say, man, trust. I don't care who it is. The person you used to date, you're currently dating, man, be careful with your trust. Don't take that thing lightly and don't just trust anybody, bro. Because the jealousy factor make people do some horrific things.
But have not made any of these public. Years after Jermaine disappeared, DeFrance was sentenced to 21 months in prison for possession of a weapon he wasn't permitted to have. While the discovery of these weapons was a result of the investigation into Jermaine's disappearance, the conviction was unrelated, and DeFrance hasn't been named as a suspect. Jermaine is described as being 5 foot 9 inches tall and weighed 130 pounds when she vanished. She was last seen wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, a white t-shirt, jeans, and cowboy boots. She has a tattoo of a flower in the center of her chest and a deer on her left shoulder blade. Anyone with information in this case is asked to contact the authorities at 406-396-3217.